Let me be clear. The evacuation of thousands of people from Kabul is going to be hard and painful, no matter when it started, when we began. There is no way to evacuate this many people without pain and loss of heartbreaking images you see on television. But we have a long way to go, and a lot could still go wrong.
A lot can still go wrong. Indeed, President Biden talking yesterday about the chaos in Afghanistan. He says the U.S. could extend the August 31st deadline to get everyone out safely, but the Taliban is drawing a red line over that, warning there will be consequences if he delays withdrawal beyond that date. And Fox News learning of an internal intelligence report warning the U.S. that ISIS and al-Qaeda plan to begin pressuring American forces to leave before the president's deadline by launching attacks on the airport. The White House asked today about the threat al-Qaeda poses.
So Friday, the president said that we got rid of al-Qaeda in Afghanistan. Sunday, the Secretary of State said there is al-Qaeda in Afghanistan. So are you presenting the president with the full picture, or is he just misapplying the intelligence when he makes these public statements?
The president was referring to al-Qaeda's capability to attack the United States, which the intelligence community tells us today is not present in Afghanistan. What is present in Afghanistan right now to our forces at the airport is a serious threat from ISIS-K, which we're trying to deal with. And, of course, there's the possibility that al-Qaeda could reconstitute an external plotting capability in Afghanistan.
There's just one other exchange we want to show you, and this was between Peter Doocy asking the White House press secretary about Americans and being stranded in Afghanistan.
Most of the criticism is not of leaving Afghanistan, it's the way that he has ordered it to happen, by pulling the troops before getting these Americans who are now stranded. Does he have a sense of that?
First of all, I think it's irresponsible to say Americans are stranded. They are not. We are committed to bringing Americans who want to come home.
One of the things, Jesse, that happened over the week, Friday and over the weekend, is that President Biden would say something, but then you would look at your screen and you're like, well, that's exactly not what we're hearing. And in fact, even this morning on Newsroom, we talked to a man who they are Afghani originally, but they became American citizens. But his wife is stuck there and stranded. And we talked to him, and they're distressed because they can't get through to the State Department.
Stranded means, Dana, if you want to leave somewhere and you can't. That's the definition of stranded. Do you think Americans can just go to Kabul airport and take up on the next flight? They can't. So they're stranded. So I don't even know why she's arguing about that word. It reminds me of, it's not a crisis at the border, it's a challenge. That's what they're doing. They're worried about messaging, all right? So at first it was, things are going great. And now it was always going to be a mess. Or, oh, we planned for this. And then, oh, no one could have planned for this. Or people are clinging from the wings of airplanes and, oh, that was 4 days ago. Now it's, oh, my heart breaks for these people. Hey, get to the airport and you'll get out as soon as you can. No, actually, no. Don't go to the airport now. Elevated terror threat. Or now it's, we're going to get out by September 11th. And now, no. We're going to have to possibly stay past September 11th. And now it's a game of chicken with the Taliban. Taliban has a deal. After September 11th, deal's off. So you're going to get into an
31st.
actual hostage crisis with live rounds. We don't know what the Taliban's capable of. We've seen the reports from the airport, 20 casualties, firing bullets into a crowd, women getting their teeth knocked out, babies getting trampled to death, American passports getting torn up like that, Americans being beaten. So right now, Taliban's basically the gate agent. You had to go to the Taliban. Here's my passport. Up. Either they rip it up or they ask for a bribe. Oh, you don't have any money? AK to the kneecap. Oh, maybe you'll come up with some money tomorrow. That's how it is. You can't have a plan like this where you're at the mercy of a terrorist organization. Biden stranded Americans in a war zone, then tried to go back on vacation, Dana. Could you imagine any other president that tried to pull that off? Create a humanitarian crisis, arm the enemy, then tried to go back on vacation? He sold us as he was the guy that was compassionate and competent. He hasn't shown either.
Jessica, what about that criticism and some of the polls over the weekend that showed that he has taken a dip on approval in lots of different areas, but that there is bipartisan disapproval about how this was handled?
I think that it's serious for the administration, and you've seen the number of briefings has increased tenfold, right, from where we were last week, where we were saying, like, when are we going to hear from someone? And now we have multiple per day. Jake Sullivan, Ned Price out there, Jen Psaki's back at the podium every day. The president spoke twice, I believe, over the weekend. He also had a hurricane to deal with. So they obviously know it's incredibly serious. The polling, it seems like, took the biggest dip because of the COVID response, which is, I know, something that we'll talk about later in the show as well. It's a huge crisis on his plate. But the dichotomy between, you know, what you're hearing in the images is something that's really hard to take, especially when you see a 2-year-old trampled, right? Like, those are things that you can't unsee in your life. And I think that what we've been noticing, or at least what I've been noticing, is the shift to focusing on how we're going to get these people out and that August 31st deadline, because we're not negotiating with a normal government. We're negotiating with a bunch of terrorists who now run a country. And August 31st, if they even hold to that, is only 8 days away. So it'll be interesting to see what comes out of the G7 meeting tomorrow that Boris Johnson is convening, if they have a plan, because it seems like the Brits have actually been making a good amount of progress.
Yeah, it feels like the Brits are not leading from behind in this situation. I also wanted to play this for you. This is about ISIS there in the control room, if you could pull this one up. Tyrus, President Biden says he understands the threat of ISIS-K. Take a look at this.
We're maintaining the constant business to monitor and disrupt threats from any source, including the likely source being ISIS, but we're under no illusions about the threat, even though we're moving back the perimeter significantly. We're working hard and as fast as we can to get people out. That's our mission.
The perimeter issue has been back and forth and disputed as well, Tyrus, but I think that many Americans might be surprised to hear that the threat of ISIS still exists.
Well, the optics is what we're seeing in optics. And Jesse, you're so right. They're trying to paint the picture of that they're doing everything by the book and that bad things were going to happen. The simplest thing is that before you pull the troops out, you get the other people out. I mean, neither one of us are military guys, and it made perfect sense to us. But now what we're seeing is the optics of they're not going to say it is the Taliban that's doing this. Now we're going to hear, well, we didn't know that ISIS was going to come back and Al-Qaeda's come back, because the Taliban in itself, when they talk to the government, this is not a unified group. They are basically tribes of different little warlords who do different things. They have no control over what their soldiers do on the field to civilians. We're seeing that. And when they tell people to go to the airport, it's literally now what mob can get through fastest. They bum rush things. They're not even getting a chance to vet people and things like that because they're literally climbing over the walls. Why? Because they're getting shot in the streets. Their women are getting beat up. Like, there is nothing about what he's talking about matches what we are seeing on the ground. And once again, it's going to be the boots, not the suits, that save the day.
Ken, you can talk about it whatever you want, but I did just want to play this as well, just about ISIS and Al-Qaeda. Watch this exchange between Chris Wallace on Fox News Sunday and the Secretary of State.
Is Al-Qaeda gone from Afghanistan?
Al-Qaeda's capacity to do what it did on 9/11, to attack us, to attack our partners or allies from Afghanistan, is vastly, vastly diminished.
Is it gone?
Are there Al-Qaeda members and remnants in Afghanistan? Yes.
So there was the handling of the evacuation, but then there's then what do we do now to keep everyone safe?
And it's a then what do we do now, which is going to only compound to get worse and worse and worse, which only makes it more dangerous for the Americans who are stranded there. They are stranded. That requires a sense of urgency, and you're not necessarily getting that because you're hearing one thing from the intelligence community and, you know, people at the Defense Department. You're hearing something completely different and a very defensive posture from the president. You're not hearing anything from the vice president on this, but, you know, if I had a family member or a good friend or someone who would put their life on the line to translate for me or to help me out while I was doing a tour in Afghanistan and they were being left there and the press secretary is saying, how dare you, that's irresponsible to use the word stranded. Those are the words that we should be using because it's her boss who is sending people to die. And it's, you know, it's the boots who are being sent into a situation that is growing worse and worse by the day, by the suits, and they don't have an answer for it. And I don't trust their intelligence. When they say, you know, oh, yeah, you know, Al-Qaeda's all gone. How do you know that? I don't trust you know that because if you knew that, if you knew exactly what you were dealing with, we wouldn't have this right now.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.